Hello, my favorite listener. This is episode 6 of Mikey and the Garden Arch. This is a Rust Belt Studio production. We have the two others. Into the Dark of the Woods runs on Fridays. It's a heavy folklore, kind of scary light type of show. Every other Tuesday, opposite of this show, you have The Engine of War, a gritty, moral, low magic drama. Now, settle in. The show is about to start. I spent the night in my own bed. By the next morning, I had a plan. It wasn't a good plan. It didn't have steps or contingencies or anything you could write down and feel proud of later. It was more like a direction my brain kept leaning toward no matter how hard I tried to stand up straight. Find Danny. Find her. Tell them everything. If I said it out loud, if I made the story real, then it wouldn't slip away from me. It wouldn't turn into a dream or a memory or one of those things you swear happened until you're 30 and suddenly you're not sure anymore. The house was quiet in that heavy summer way where the air feels thick even before noon. My mom was at work and my dad was off probably looking for work. The TV was off and the only sound was the hum of the fridge and the tick of the clock over the stove. I checked the time again. Still morning. I know I'd been gone for 2 days, but here it had barely been 6 or 7 hours before I got home. And I kept rolling that around in my head like it might start to make sense. It didn't. Time didn't match, it didn't line up, and I was really worried if I was here for this long, what was happening on the other side of the arch. I know it doesn't really make sense. All I wanted to do was get home, but now that I was home, all I wanted to do was get back and find out what was going on with Johnson. I grabbed my bike and headed out before I could talk myself out of it. Summer in our town had a way of pretending nothing ever happened. Lawns were cut, sidewalks baked, sprinklers clicked back and forth like they were counting something important. If you didn't know better, you'd think this was a place where nothing strange would ever happen. I knew better. Danny was easy to find. Danny always was. He was halfway down the block in front of his house already talking when I rolled up. He hadn't even seen me yet. He was just talking. Hands moving, words spilling out like they were late for something. He was gearing up his speeches to talk to us for later in the day, and he was practicing them on no one. Cedar Point, that was the headline. He'd been there the day before with his uncle and apparently lived a lifetime in the span of a few hours. Roller coasters, lines, screaming, near-death experiences that weren't actually near-death at all. He told the story like it was proof of something, freedom, maybe, or bravery, or just the fact that summer hadn't been wasted yet. I let him go on for a minute. I didn't have the heart to stop him right away, and when I finally did, I didn't do it with words. I just dropped my bike to the ground and stood there until he noticed me. He stopped mid-sentence, squinting at me like he was trying to decide if I was real. Oh, there you are. There I was indeed. Just like I'd been down the street, like I hadn't crossed into something else entirely, and I told him I needed to talk. Not in the normal way you say it, not casual. I made sure he heard it in my voice. He listened, kind of. Danny always listened, kind of. But even when I started telling him about the arch, about stepping through, about how long I'd been gone on the other side, I could feel him trying to fit the story into something he already understood, and it didn't fit. He joked, not cruelly and just reflexive. He asked if I'd watched too many movies. He asked if this was like that haunted house thing that I'd gotten obsessed with for a while. I kept going. I talked about time, about how it didn't match, about how my parents hadn't even noticed I was gone, and how the world just kept moving. Danny nodded, and he made the right noises. He said things like, "That's wild," and "No way, dude." But I could see it. He didn't believe me, not really. He believed I believed it, and that felt like the same thing to him, but it wasn't. I didn't push Johnson yet, and I didn't talk about the fox in the jacket or the way he'd rolled across the ground when he got hit like he was made of cloth instead of bone. Somehow, I knew that if I said that part out loud, it would be the end of the conversation. He would cross the line from weird story to Mikey needs help. So I didn't. I told Danny I needed her too, the other one. He knew who I meant. Everyone did. It was her first day out since getting grounded, which meant she was exactly where she didn't want to be, sitting on the edge of her porch, arms crossed, watching the world like it had personally wronged her. Walking up to her felt harder than stepping through the arch had. At least the arch hadn't looked at me like I was wasting its time. I still couldn't call her by her name, and that part makes my stomach twist just thinking about it. I knew who she was. I knew everything around her name, but the name itself, gone. So I didn't say it. Danny and I stood there, and she watched us walk up. I told the story again, not every detail, not the poetry of it, just the facts as clean as I could make them. The arch, the crossing, the way time slid sideways, the way I came back and nothing here had noticed. She listened the way someone listens when they've already decided how this is going to end. She didn't laugh. She sighed. She said that sounds stupid. She said that it was a heck of a story, but that was pretty much all it was ever going to be. It wasn't funny. Danny tried to soften it. He tried to joke it into something. And standing there between them, in the middle of a summer morning that smelled like hot grass and pavement, I realized something that hurt worse than either of them laughing. Even if I told it perfectly, even if I said every word right, they weren't going to follow me. They weren't going to cross. They lived here, in this version of the world. In summer days and roller coasters and being grounded and then ungrounded again. And I didn't anymore. I didn't argue. I didn't yell. I just stopped talking. I got back on my bike and rode away while they were still trying to figure out if I was mad or just being dramatic. The wind dried the sweat on my neck and the sun kept doing its job and the town stayed exactly the same. And somewhere, on the other side of an arch that wasn't open anymore, Johnson was still there, and whether anyone believed me or not, it didn't change that. Riding home, the story started replaying whether I wanted it to or not like a movie, more like pieces, sharp ones, moments that stuck because they didn't make sense yet. The arch, for one, just wood and chip paint shaped into something decorative and forgotten. I remembered stepping through and feeling the air change, not colder, not warmer, just different, like when you dive underwater and your ears fill up suddenly and you're inside the world instead of listening to it. The river folk came first. Their faces didn't sit still, they rippled. They'd spoken to me like I was supposed to already understand the rules, like I was late. I wondered how many of them there were, and if they all lived near the water, they would have to all live near the water, right? The river folk. And there were river kids, river parents, so they must grow old and die. I don't know, did they grow old and die? Then came Guy. Guy with his voice and his measured things the way adults measure storms on the horizon, who talked about the arch like it was a responsibility instead of a mystery, and me like a prized rabbit. I thought of the troll and the bridge and the loop, and I wondered if I went back, was I going to have to find another way to loop again so I could come home? Was I going to have to pay another card? Would the troll thing even work again? Was the loop like permanent? I would just have to find the bridge. Would I have to pay to cross the bridge? I didn't know. And then there were the sisters, Hitch and Hike. Their hooves on the road, the way they laughed, the way they had known things about me, or at least seemed to. I wondered too if there was like other headed people. Like, were there deer-headed people? Were there bear-headed people? I wondered if they all watched crossings the way Danny watched roller coasters, waiting for the next ride, waiting for someone brave or stupid enough to step up. And then I thought about Johnson. Johnson in his jacket, Johnson grinning at me, asking, "What do we have here?" Him giving me the tour, helping me survive in that world, and then him rolling across the ground when he got hit, like the world had suddenly decided he was lighter than he looked. Him getting back up anyway and yelling, "Go!" I stopped my bike in front of my house and just stood there for a second, hands on the handlebars, staring at the front door. Should I have stayed? The question wasn't dramatic when it came up, but it was unavoidable. If I'd have stayed, I wouldn't be here right now. True, obvious. I wouldn't be safe. I wouldn't be eating toast or riding my bike or arguing with my friends about things that didn't matter. But Johnson would have been less alone. That thought settled heavy in my chest and didn't move. I wheeled my bike around back and leaned it against the fence. No reason, just habit. Like if I did normal things in the normal order, the world wouldn't notice I was about to break its rules again. Inside, I went straight into my room and I shut the door. If I was going back, and I was, then I needed to be smarter about it. 2 days on the other side had taught me at least one thing. Wonder was great, but it didn't carry everything. I dumped my backpack onto the bed and started pulling things out, and then I stopped. No, backpack was wrong. Backpack was heavy. I needed something that said, I'll be back tonight. I'm just traveling light. I grabbed my cargo shorts out of the drawer instead, the ugly ones with too many pockets that my mom hated and I loved for reasons I couldn't have explained until that very moment, because pockets mean options. Pockets mean preparation. I laid everything out on the bed like I'd seen adults do before trips. I couldn't help but for a moment feel like Kevin in Home Alone. I was going to do this alone, and while I didn't have a house to defend, I still needed to be prepared for whatever may come. First, clothes. Extra socks. Always extra socks. I don't know why, but every adult I knew always said that you had to pack extra socks. I pulled out my fanny pack. Look, this was the 90s, and fanny packs were the easiest way to carry all of your stuff, especially when you were a boy and you didn't have a purse. Inside went a travel soap from the junk drawer in the bathroom and a tiny toothbrush and the little toothpaste that tasted like gross, because 2 days without washing my hands or brushing my teeth had felt worse than being chased. Dirt was one thing, feeling gross was completely different. I stood there looking at it all and thought about food, and then I shook my head. I was going to have enough wonder on me that if a bottle cap could get soup, I was going to be able to eat like a king. I grabbed some extra baseball cards, a bunch that I didn't care about. I did grab a few bottle caps. I pulled a bunch of coins off my dresser. Last thing, I grabbed a bat. I grabbed my aluminum one, not my favorite one, not my good wood one that I babied. I held it in my hands and I tested the weight. It wasn't a sword and it wasn't magic, but it was solid, it was familiar, and it was something I knew how to swing. That mattered. For a second, I caught my reflection in the mirror. I didn't look like a hero. I looked like a kid who'd watched too many movies and decided he was ready, but my eyes were different. They weren't searching and they weren't scared in the same way they had been before. They were fixed. I stepped outside again and I started walking, not fast. The lot was still the same, cracked foundation of some old house, weeds and overgrown grass encased in a chain link fence that was bent in so many places it wasn't keeping anything in or out. When I reached it, I stopped. The arch stood there quietly, paint peeling, sunlight filtering through like it was just a garden decoration again. No shimmer, no pull, no hum, no sense of now. I stepped closer. Nothing. I raised a hand and touched the wood. Splinter. Still nothing. My heart started pounding, not with fear, but with confusion, and I thought, okay, fine, you know what, that's fair. I stood there, bat in one hand, pockets full of supplies, fanny pack slung around my waist, staring at the place where everything had gone wrong and right at the same time, and the thought finally caught up with me. How does this thing even work anyway? I tried stepping through, fast, slow, like the arch might respond better if I did rush it or didn't rush it. I held my breath. Still nothing. The air didn't change, my ears didn't pop, the world just stayed stubbornly Ohio. I leaned my bat against my leg and looked around. If someone walked by right now, they'd see a kid standing in front of an arch with a fanny pack and a baseball bat, staring at nothing like it owed him money. I pressed my palm flat against the wood and closed my eyes. I tried to remember what I'd done the first time. I hadn't been prepared then, but that was non-negotiable. I wasn't going to give up the stuff I'd gotten now. When I came up to this before, I was alone. All my friends were occupied. I was just looking for something to do. I just wanted something else. That was when it opened, not because I was ready, but because I was just ready for something to happen. But I was ready for something to happen now. I mean, I was super prepared. And so I muttered at the arch, "What? You just work when someone's not ready?" The hum still didn't come. There was no green shimmer. Nothing. I laughed once, short and sharp, because of course it wasn't going to be that easy. Of course the world didn't come with instructions. Of course there were rules I didn't understand yet, and I sat down on the grass in front of the arch and let the bat rest across my knees. The ground was warm, it was solid, it was real, and cicadas buzzed in the distance like they were laughing at me. I thought about Danny and about the roller coasters and fries and summer days that ended exactly where they started. I thought about her, about the empty space where her name should have been, about how the crows had taken it like it was nothing, like it was just another thing I didn't need anymore. I stood up again, and my heart was thudding harder now, not because I expected the arch to open, because I finally understood what I was asking it to do. I put my hand back on the wood one more time, and I said, "I'm not done. I didn't finish." And I took a step forward. And nothing. Nothing! I swallowed, and I was choosing. I wanted to go back. Why would this not let me go back? The arch wouldn't open. I don't know if it was about whether standing there, if I would start to give up, if I would just walk away. I needed a break. I needed to think about this a little bit more. So I turned away, but I looked back over my shoulder at that arch, and I said it again. No irony, no Arnold voice. I'll be back. Hello again. So that takes care of Mikey 6. We'll be back in 2 weeks for Mikey 7. This is a Rust Belt Studio production. It was written and narrated by Brian Foster. You can catch this and all of our Rust Belt Studio shows wherever you got this podcast. Like, listen, share, comment. All of those go a long way to moving the show forward. If you'd like to do more, you can join our Patreon, and the link is in the show notes below. There are $2, $5, and $9 tiers, all of which will help move the studio forward and keep bringing you all of these great shows. Until next time, my favorite listener.